Today, we're going deep on a case that really messed with the community's sense of safety.
Mm,
The Alexandria assassin, Charles Severance.
right.
We've got, your research and notes.
Yep.
And it's wild how this guy went from a seemingly normal, if a bit odd, neighbor to a full-blown serial killer
Yeah.
over a decade.
Over a decade, yeah.
And he just kind of blended in.
What strikes me is how he managed to blend in for so long.
Yeah.
Even with the murders happening over such a long period,
Yeah.
the community was shaken, especially since the finger of blame initially pointed at someone completely unexpected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets crazy right off the bat.
Yeah.
The first victim's husband, Sheriff Jim Dunning,
Right.
became the prime suspect.
Interesting.
Not just statistically likely, but because there were whispers about their marriage.
Hmm.
And the 911 call had some, let's say, interesting word choices for a law enforcement official.
Oh, really?
But was that tunnel vision on the investigator's part?
It's fascinating how often that initial focus,
Right.
even if understandable, can derail an investigation.
Yeah.
You're looking for evidence to confirm your suspicions instead of letting the evidence lead you.
Right.
In Dunning's case, he was a jail sheriff, not a homicide detective, so his terminology might have been off, but not necessarily malicious.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that saying, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly.
But sadly, that focus on Dunning meant the real killer, Severance, was free to operate for years.
For years.
So let's rewind to December 2003.
Okay.
The murder of Nancy Dunning, a beloved real estate agent.
Right.
What do we know about the crime itself that made it so baffling?
She was shot multiple times
Wow.
with a .22 caliber weapon in her own home.
In her own home.
No forced entry, nothing stolen, no witnesses.
Wow.
It just screamed targeted attack, but with zero apparent motive. That's incredibly difficult to investigate because you're not just looking for who, but also why at the same time.
So from your notes, it sounds like investigators rely heavily on patterns and motives early on.
Right.
Did this lack of a clear why contribute to them zeroing in on the husband, like grasping at straws?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's human nature to seek explanations. And in a crime like this,
Right.
with no obvious signs of a random act,
Yeah.
the people closest to the victim become natural points of focus.
Yeah.
Add in rumors about marital problems,
Right.
and it's easy to see how that narrative took hold.
Yeah.
But this tunnel vision came at a cost.
Yeah.
Nearly a decade of the real killer going free.
So fast forward to 2013,
Okay.
and Ron Kirby is murdered. Again, daytime, home invasion style, .22 caliber bullets.
Wow.
This is where alarm bells really start going off.
Yes, this is when the cold case aspect truly kicks in.
Okay.
Suddenly, it's not just an unsolved murder, but potentially a pattern.
Right.
The use of the same caliber weapon is significant,
Right.
suggesting a possible link. However, there's still no obvious connection between Dunning and Kirby, and no clear motive for either murder.
Wow.
This is where things get even more complicated for investigators.
Yeah. You mentioned in your notes that the second murder hit close to home for the Commonwealth attorney, Brian Porter.
Right.
Was that just geographically, or is there more to it?
Porter had grown up in the same neighborhood
Oh, wow.
where both murders occurred.
Oh, wow.
It transformed the case from an abstract investigation to something deeply personal.
Right.
Now, he wasn't just dealing with a potential serial killer on the loose, but one operating in the very streets he knew so well.
Wow. That must have added a whole other layer of pressure
Absolutely.
to the investigation.
Yeah.
Then just a few months later,
Right.
tragedy strikes again with the murder of Ruthann Lodo,
Uh-huh.
another prominent figure in Alexandria, right at her front door.
Wow.
But this time, there's a survivor,
Well.
Jeanette Franco.
Okay.
Talk about a game changer.
Jeanette, the caretaker for Ruthann's mother, witnessed the attack.
Oh, wow.
Not only did she survive being shot,
Wow.
but she was able to give a detailed description of the killer,
Okay.
the weapon, a 5-shot revolver,
Okay.
very specific,
Yeah.
and even some of his behavior.
Mm-hmm.
This finally gave investigators something concrete to work with.
So this is where Charles Severance finally enters the picture.
Right.
The sketch from Jeanette's description, tips about his history of grievances against the city,
Huh?
and his bizarre runs for mayor and Congress all start pointing in his direction.
It's like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place.
Yeah.
However, they still needed to connect Severance definitively to the murders.
Right.
And that's where things take another unexpected turn.
Okay.
Severance does something truly bizarre.
What's that?
He attempts to seek asylum at the Russian embassy.
Okay, now we're getting into some truly strange behavior.
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
He showed up at the embassy in a tricorn hat and poncho, claiming his killings were political acts and demanding asylum.
Oh my goodness.
The Russians weren't buying it
Yeah.
and contacted the Secret Service.
Oh, wow.
They followed Severance to a parking garage
Okay.
and photographed his car, a maroon Ford Escort station wagon,
Hmm.
matching the description of a vehicle spotted near one of the crime scenes.
Okay.
So
They're closing in.
they're closing in.
But Severance disappears before they can make an arrest.
Right.
What happens next?
His girlfriend informs the police that he's gone camping,
Oh, wow.
taking all his belongings.
Okay.
But here's the crucial detail.
What's that?
She reveals that Severance recently convinced her to buy 2.22 caliber revolvers online,
Uh-huh.
and those guns are now missing.
Oh.
Remember, Severance had a prior felony conviction,
Right.
making it illegal for him to possess firearms.
Right.
They now had probable cause for an arrest.
And they wasted no time.
They did not.
A nationwide manhunt ensues.
Wow.
And within 24 hours, he's found in a library in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Not exactly the rugged wilderness escape he probably had in mind, huh?
Not quite.
Hiding in plain sight like that is more common than you might think.
It is.
But despite finally having Severance in custody,
Right.
he invokes his right to remain silent,
Okay.
refusing to confess.
Of course.
However, his silence wouldn't matter.
Right.
They find something in his car that would speak volumes.
What's that?
Dozens of journals.
Oh, wow.
Okay, hold on.
Right.
We've got a suspected serial killer,
Right.
a decade-long mystery,
Yep.
and now we've got journals. This is where it gets really interesting.
It does.
What did those journals reveal?
Well, you'll have to wait until the next deep dive to find out.
Oh, come on. You can't leave us hanging like that. All right, fine.
Uh-huh.
We'll be back for part 2 of our deep dive into the case of Charles Severance.
Looking forward to it. All right. No more cliffhangers. Those journals were like a window into Severance's mind, filled with rants against the city, bizarre poems, and what were essentially blueprints for murder. He wrote about the satisfaction of killing, the power he felt it gave him, even describing his preferred weapon, a .22 caliber 5-shot mini revolver, just like the one used in all 3 murders.
Wow. That's chilling. It's like he was documenting his descent into madness, but was that enough to convict him? I mean, journals are one thing, but could they directly link him to the crimes?
They were definitely a huge piece of the puzzle. Remember that box of .22 caliber ammunition the police found in the house where Severance had been staying?
Yeah.
Ballistics testing confirmed that the bullets matched those used in the murders.
Oh, wow.
Coupled with the journals, the prosecution had a strong case for premeditation.
It sounds like an open and shut case, but I'm guessing Severance didn't go down without a fight.
Right. Not a chance. Brian Porter, the Commonwealth attorney, knew this wasn't going to be easy. Severance was intelligent, meticulous, and completely unrepentant. His defense team focused heavily on his mental state, arguing he wasn't of sound mind when he committed the crimes. They pointed to his erratic behavior, the bizarre writings, even his attempt to seek asylum at the Russian embassy.
So it became a battle of narratives, a cold, calculating killer versus a mentally disturbed individual. What was the turning point in the trial?
The testimony of Jeanette Franco was pivotal.
Right.
Remember, she's the sole surviving witness. And she had to relive the trauma of that day, identify Severance in court, and withstand intense cross-examination. Her account of the events was chilling.
Yeah.
The doorbell, the gunshots, being shot herself.
I can't imagine the courage it took to face him in court. What about the defense's strategy? Did they try to discredit her testimony?
Absolutely. They tried to cast doubt on her recollection of events, particularly her identification of Severance. But Jeanette stood firm. Her unwavering testimony resonated with the jury, providing a powerful counterpoint to the defense's claims of mental instability.
It's amazing how one person's bravery can have such a profound impact on the course of justice. What about the prosecution? How did they counter the insanity defense?
They meticulously presented a timeline, connecting Severance to each crime scene, highlighting the similarities in the murders. They argued that his journals revealed a clear motive, revenge against the city of Alexandria and those he blamed for the loss of his son.
So in a way, his own words were used against him. But it wasn't just about getting a conviction, right? This was about bringing closure to the families and the community, especially clearing Jim Dunning's name.
You're right. It was about restoring peace of mind to a community that had been living in fear for over a decade.
Right.
Unfortunately, Jim Dunning didn't live to see his name cleared. He passed away before Severance was caught.
That's heartbreaking. He was robbed of the chance to see justice served.
His son, Cress, testified at the trial, sharing a moving account of his father's innocence and the devastation the accusations had caused their family. It was a powerful reminder of the ripple effects these crimes have, impacting not just the victims, but everyone connected to them.
Yeah. After a 7-week trial and 2 days of deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict.
Guilty on all counts.
Wow.
Charles Severance was convicted of the murders of Nancy Dunning, Ron Kirby, and Ruthann Lowato, as well as the attempted murder of Jeanette Franco. He was sentenced to 3 life terms in prison, plus 48 years, ensuring he would never harm another person.
Wow. Justice, albeit delayed, was finally served. It's a testament to the persistence of the investigators and the bravery of those like Jeanette Franco who came forward to speak the truth.
It is.
But I keep thinking about those journals. They sound like a treasure trove of information about the mind of a serial killer.
That's where things get ethically complicated. While those journals might offer valuable insights into Severance's motives and thought processes, there's also the question of whether making them public would give a platform to his hateful ideology.
That's a really interesting point. We all want to understand what drives someone to commit such horrific acts, but there's a fine line between seeking knowledge and potentially glorifying a killer's actions.
Exactly. And even from a research perspective, there's the question of whether analyzing the writings of someone like Severance could contribute to a sort of morbid fascination or even inspire copycat crimes.
It's a real dilemma, isn't it? On the one hand, we want to learn from these cases, prevent future tragedies, but on the other hand, we have a responsibility to avoid sensationalizing violence or giving a voice to hate.
And there's no easy answer. It's a debate that will continue as long as people struggle to understand the darkest corners of the human psyche.
This deep dive has taken us from the shocking murders to a complex trial and now into these ethical considerations. What stands out to you as the most important takeaway from this case?
For me, it's the reminder that appearances can be deceiving. Severance was a neighbor, a member of the community, someone who blended in, and yet beneath the surface, there was this simmering rage and capacity for violence that most people couldn't fathom.
That's a chilling thought, and it leads me to my final question. Do you think Severance would have continued killing if he hadn't been caught?
Based on his writings and actions, his thirst for revenge seemed far from quenched. He saw himself as a warrior fighting a corrupt system. Believing violence was the only way to achieve justice.
Wow.
It's highly possible he would have targeted other individuals he perceived as enemies, perhaps even expanding his scope beyond Alexandria.
That's a truly disturbing thought. It makes you wonder what could have potentially stopped him, or if his rage would have just escalated.
It's impossible to say for sure, but this case really underscores the importance of recognizing warning signs.
Yeah?
Not just the obvious ones, but the subtle signs of extremism, isolation, and resentment that can fester beneath the surface.
It's easy to think, oh, that could never happen in my community. But this case proves that these kinds of tragedies can occur anywhere.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And it highlights the need for vigilance, not just from law enforcement, but from all of us.
Right.
We need to foster a culture of empathy, understanding, and open communication so that people feel comfortable seeking help or reporting concerns before they escalate into violence.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. We've gone from a seemingly straightforward murder case to a complex psychological puzzle, and now to these broader societal implications.
And that's the thing about these deep dives, right? They often reveal connections and complexities that we might not have considered at first glance.
This case is a reminder that the world can be a dangerous place, but it's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It is.
We saw that in Jeanette Franco's courage, the dedication of the investigators, and the unwavering pursuit of justice for the victims and their families.
I think that's a really important point. Even amidst tragedy and darkness, there are always stories of hope, bravery, and the triumph of good over evil.
Well said. This has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about the specifics of the case, but also about the psychology of a killer, the intricacies of forensic investigation, and the ethical dilemmas surrounding access to sensitive information.
It's a case that raises a lot of questions, some of which we may never have definitive answers to.
And that's okay. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from grappling with ambiguity and uncertainty.
I couldn't agree more.
To our listeners, we hope this episode has encouraged you to think critically about the world around you and to never take your safety for granted. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe. That's a truly disturbing thought. It makes you wonder what could have potentially stopped him, or if his rage would have just escalated.
It's impossible to say for sure, but this case really underscores the importance of recognizing warning signs. Not just the obvious ones, but the subtle signs of extremism, isolation, and resentment that can fester beneath the surface.
It's easy to think, oh, that could never happen in my community, but this case proves that these kinds of tragedies can occur anywhere.
Absolutely. And it highlights the need for vigilance, not just from law enforcement, but from all of us.
Right.
We need to foster a culture of empathy, understanding, and open communication so that people feel comfortable seeking help or reporting concerns before they escalate into violence.
You know, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. We've gone from a seemingly straightforward murder case to a complex psychological puzzle, and now to these broader societal implications.
And that's the thing about these deep dives, right?
Yeah.
They often reveal connections and complexities that we might not have considered at first glance.
This case is a reminder that the world can be a dangerous place, but it's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
It is.
We saw that in Jeanette Franco's courage, the dedication of the investigators, and the unwavering pursuit of justice for the victims and their families.
I think that's a really important point. Even amidst tragedy and darkness, there are always stories of hope, bravery, and the triumph of good over evil.
Well said. This has been an incredibly thought-provoking deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about the specifics of this case, but also about the psychology of a killer, the intricacies of forensic investigation, and the ethical dilemmas surrounding access to sensitive information.
It's a case that raises a lot of questions, some of which we may never have definitive answers to.
And that's okay. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from grappling with ambiguity and uncertainty.
I couldn't agree more.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has encouraged you to think critically about the world around you and to never take your safety for granted. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.